the lovely things of Federation being able to offer these new and unique programs this year is that we have found that we do want to study and observe different things together. And it's so much easier to just press a button on mute than to get in a car and drive an hour or so, especially on a rainy, yucky day as it is here. So I first of all want to welcome you. And again, through the magic of Zoom, on behalf of Rabbi Rachel Rubenstein, um, uh, she has written something in the chat that I want to call your attention to. She's in a kind of noisy place right now. And so, whereas she kindly said, how about you just start and begin? I said, no, this kind of was your brainchild, Rabbi. So please, okay, put something in the chat. So she said, okay, good idea. So she put something in the chat. And of course, she welcomes you. And thank you, Jeff, for Jeff and Anne for putting a little welcome in there. If anyone would like to put anything in the chat to say hello or any kind of question that might arise, feel free to do so. I'm going to tell you right now that I'm not proficient enough to teach and read the chat, but I'm going to ask that if Sharon could, if there's anything I need to see, then Sharon will feel free to say, hold on, Rabbi, we need to stop for just a second. So I am, just by word of introduction, if you don't know, if we haven't had the chance to meet before, my name is Rabbi Rebecca Shinder. I've had the great privilege of being the spiritual leader of Temple Beth Shalom in Florida, New York, since 2005. So that makes me the longest serving rabbi in Orange County. I like to tease that makes me the chief rabbi of Orange County, although we have some
Yes,
neighbors that might
yes.
take some issue with that. But that's for another discussion. I do want to say, I want to shout out a special hello to Paul Pomerantz, because Pomerantz is my maiden name, and I've seen you guys on different Federation things. We're not related, but at the very least, we met on Sinai. That is what we say. So we are going to begin in just a moment. The Clay Kodesh, the holy vessels of Orange County, came up with this idea of marking the counting between Passover to Shavuot. We refer to this as the counting of the Omer, to make a transition from redemption to revelation. So as we've just celebrated our Festival of Freedom, we're working towards the festival of Shavuot, where our people received the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai, and we look to that as an opportunity of growth and learning. So we are going to first begin, although you know that we are going to study a little bit about the book of Deborah, and we're going to begin actually with a blessing for studying Torah. But before we actually study Torah, I'm going to call upon our dear friend Sharon Ball to share with us the survey that I hope will be, I'm calling this kind of like a pre-test for our time together. And you will see that I'm asking you about some of the details about Deborah. Sharon,
One
you have
moment,
a
I'm
question?
sorry. Rachel, the poll was there a minute ago, and now it says I'm logged in from another device and the polling session is inactive.
Okay, let me try and log out. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can help.
Okay, sorry, everybody. It was there 2 minutes ago.
Man plans, God laughs. I do have it, I can come up with a different way of doing this if it doesn't work. But I wanted to just sort of ask a little bit about your knowledge. There's no I'm not posting any results of the quiz. There will be no penalty for someone who doesn't score high enough. I just thought we'd have a little fun. Some of the questions are more rooted in the text and some are a little bit silly. But I thought that it would be a way for us to explore this text a little bit together. While we are still waiting for the poll to arrive, I am going to share my screen with you, and we are going to begin with our blessing for Torah. Even though we are going to be studying from the book of Judges, Torah is a general term of Jewish study. And so we are grounded in our work together and our exploration together by offering these words of Torah. So I'm going to ask that everyone make sure that you're still on mute so we don't have too much cacophony. And if there is cacophony, that's okay too. But please join me in these words of blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And so these words speak about not just hearing words of Torah or reading words of Torah, but the translation is to busy ourselves, to try and get at the root of what's going on in these words of Torah. So we will do that in just a minute. So how Rabbi Rubenstein was not talking? How are we doing, everyone? Okay, so here are questions that I want you to think about. We'll forego the poll if we're having technical difficulty. And here are things I want you to ask yourself about all the things you know about Deborah. And we're going to do this in a different kind of way. I'm going to ask you to vote. I'm going to ask you 4 different questions. Everything's going to be A, B, C, or D. And so you can, I'm going to tell you what the choices are. And then I'm going to ask you again. And when you think it's A, you'll raise your hand. When you think it's B, you'll raise your hand. Don't cheat by looking at the window next to you. This is, we're going to be as, okay, here we go. So Deborah was, here are your choices. A mediator, B, a prophet, C, a poet, D, all of these. Deborah was, Lucy's raising her hand to vote or to say,
no.
Okay. Okay, so.
Well, I think actually she was all of them, actually.
You know what, Lucy, we're going to give Lucy this. Yes, Lucy is, that's actually a better idea. If anyone wants to raise their hand with the answer to it. So Lucy Fox is our first answer. And yes, Deborah was a mediator, a prophet, and a poet. So all of these. So here's the next question. We'll see who wants to get a special prize, who's going to join Lucy on the leaderboard in this next one. We read her story in A, the book of Judges, B, a seal discovered from the mid-13th century BCE, C, a diary from General Sisera, or D, the book of Ruth. Raise your hand if you want to answer. A, the book of Judges, B, a seal discovered. Oh, Charlene raised her hand first. The hardest part of the quiz is to find out how to unmute yourself, though.
I know how. I just forgot. Book of Judges, yes.
Okay, 2 for 2. Okay, this is a very astute crowd. Okay, Sisera was a Canaanite, B, general, C, escapee, D, all of these. And raise your hand when you want to answer. Sisera. Okay, Jeffrey.
The general.
He was a general, but he also was a Canaanite general, and he also was an escapee. So all of these. So I'm sorry, Jeffrey, you cannot go on the special trip won by Lucy and Charlene, but I thank you for telling us that he was a Canaanite general. Okay, Yael was an A, assistant judge, B, not married, C, a pacifist, D, none of these. Sheila.
None of those.
D, none of those. Sheila joins the leaderboard as well. Okay, so now this is not a competition. I want hands to go up when this applies to you. And I need to see everybody through the Zoom. I have 2 pages. I'm going to see if I can see everybody. Oh, there's so many of us that I do need 2 pages. Here we go. In my family, this is you yourself, but also me. I can answer this too. In my family, there is at least one Aunt Debbie. If that applies to you, raise your hand. Okay, there is at least one cousin Debbie. Raise your hand. Okay. 2, a sister named Debbie. Raise your hand. D, I have a friend named Debbie. Okay, there we go. Okay, so thank you. So
I have a niece named Debbie.
a niece named Debbie. Thank you, Arlene. Anyone else have somebody else totally that doesn't require, does it? Eileen, who do you have?
A niece named Deborah.
Also a niece. Jan.
I have a daughter named Deborah.
A daughter named Deborah. I didn't even put that as, right, okay. So we can see that if we wanted to look at the leaderboard, that there are lots of Deborahs in our families. I have cousins who have 2 Aunt Debbies, one on each side. So Deborah is, because of the question that I had before, perhaps, Deborah was this mediator, prophet, poet. She stands out as one of the things that we value so much. We want for our daughters to be this brave, strong person. So I'm very, very happy. Rabbi Rubenstein, this Federation group is everyone wants to participate. I love it. So one of the things that makes Deborah unique, and we'll study some text in a little bit, is that unlike most of the other female characters in the Hebrew Bible, her identity is not tied to a man. What do I mean by that? For example, Sarah. We know that Sarah is an important figure because of whom? Who do we know that's kind of maybe even more famous than Sarah? Raise your hand. Take yourself off mute. Shout it out.
Abraham.
Abraham. Thank you. Okay, Miriam. Why do we know about Miriam? What is her? Who is the person?
Moses.
Sheila.
Moses.
Excellent.
Sister.
Exactly, Moses' sister. Okay, now even Esther.
Mordecai.
Gets her Mordecai, right. Esther wouldn't be Esther if it wasn't for Mordecai, right? He's sort of
Ferosh.
he's sort of tells the story. Oh my gosh, it's already 5:44. How did that happen? So our heroine today, I know how it happened a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna jump and do something crazy, which is to tell you a little bit about maybe 3 or 4 different books of the Hebrew Bible in about 57 nanoseconds, something like that. Okay, so we know that Torah ends with the death of somebody very important. We heard about him before. Shout it out. Don't be shy. Shout it out. Who? Moses. Thank you. And we are told that nobody ever will be like Moshe again. No prophet like he. He is fabulous. He is wonderful. And we know that most of the story, his narrative of Moses, is getting the people ready to go from escaping Egyptian bondage, as we just talked about, that we celebrated in Passover, and moving us towards the land of Israel. Although we know that Moshe will not enter the land of Israel. If we had more time, we would take time to talk about why not. we know he's punished. He made some wrong steps, and his successor is named. His successor is named in the book of Numbers. Joshua ben Nun will take over, and he begins kind of as a little bit of an apprenticeship. And as after Moshe dies at the end of Deuteronomy, we have the very next book of the Hebrew Bible, and that is, someone shouted out, what is the next book after
Joshua.
Deuteronomy? Joshua, exactly right. Thank you. Oh, and Anne is smiling when she leaned forward to say it. Thank you. So Joshua, actually, even though, raise your hand if you have a Joshua in your family. Raise your hand. I have a brother named Joshua. Okay. Joshua, this great figure. Guess what? The book is so gory, so much bloodshed, so terrible that if you really looked at it, you'd say, eek, or I did anyway, why is there so much bloodshed? Why is there so much gore? Because guess what happened? When we were in Egypt for that little bit of time, the Canaanites did very well for several hundred years. Thank you very much. And we didn't just come back. We didn't just cross over the desert and knock on the door and say, hi guys, we're back. Can we have our land back, please? No. The only way that God tells us or instructs us how we can come back to the land is through bloodshed, is through all kinds of stories about how we are to assert ourselves with battle story after battle story. So this happens throughout the book of Joshua, and in fact, the beginning of the book of Judges, which is the book rooted, I forget who answered us, that is where we meet Deborah. Judges opens with and we're still fighting, and we're still not welcome back, and we are not able to take possession of the land so easily. So that are the first 3 chapters of the book of Judges. And then we come to our heroine for today. And I am going to share with you a little bit of our handout for today. Boy, we said a Bissel of Torah. This is like a true Bissel of Torah. So this opens, because of
Sorry,
the
I had
time.
a question.
Yes.
I raised my hand, but with my background, you may not be able to see it.
Sorry.
It's okay. I just have a question. So is there some sort of justification for going in and just having, bloodshed with the Canaanites? Like, is there, you said they were doing well, but were they evil in some way? Or, just because looking at that, I can understand why people may look and say, look, you left the land and then you came back and other people were doing well, and you just said, so was there something in the writings that sort of kind of was justification for bloodshed?
The answer to your question is very subjective, in that the Canaanites were offering what we would call idolatrous practices, which again is all over the Hebrew Bible. They did what was abhorrent to the Lord. So if your father, for example, worshiped to Baal and brought sacrifices to the sun god, the moon god, that's not abhorrent to you. But one of the things that the Hebrew Bible is very interested in sharing with the world is saying, we're not like them. We don't worship like they do. We have our own religious practice. And so one of the major us-them kind of conversations is, we do not worship idols. We do not worship the sun god, the moon god. We have a covenantal relationship with Adonai, our God. And so the setup throughout the book of Joshua, first of all, that again there's sort of foreshadowing in the book of Numbers that this is gonna that he's going to be the leader. There's even more foreshadowing in the book of Deuteronomy that it's not going to be easy. Again, there's no welcome mat that's going to be laid out in the sand for us, but we are going to take what is rightfully ours. By the way, we could say this same sentence about what modern Israel today, right? That our people feel that we have certain claim. I lost an earbud. And certainly there are other folks who think that no, they have a certain claim. So, Jill, does that answer your question a little bit?
A little, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, it's for us modern, for us pacifists are, it doesn't really sound so. It doesn't really sit so well with us. We're supposed to be all getting along with each other, but it is a very graphic depiction of how we are going to reclaim the land. It's also very messy in terms of who are we in terms of, we no longer have Moses. Moshe Rabbeinu led us for a really long time. Okay, Joshua was a successor. Okay, fine. But then he dies at 110 years old. And now what are we supposed to do? Who is supposed to be in charge of us? And we figure out that judges will lead us. Then ultimately kings, once the Israelites demand a king. And so we're evolving. So I'd like to go now to Judges 4. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to do a little bit of reading. In fact, let's see, where is I see Roberta Baum. Can you just read for us? Sorry to call on you. Could you? But you're an educator, you're used to it. Can you please read for us the English that's here, the English translation here about Deborah? But you have to take yourself on.
I have to, where am I? I could hardly see it. In this little print that's on screen?
Am I, is my.
No, I just have some blessings here. Or
So
maybe it's been, she sent and summoned Barak. Is that the part you want me to read?
Do you see the one above it? Can you see that it's highlighted now?
She used to sit under the palm.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
She used to sit under the palm.
Okay, the English on top of that. Deborah, all right, you know what? I'm gonna just do it. Roberta, thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to put you on.
I'm not sure what you wanted, and it's very tiny.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. This is how we first meet Deborah. Deborah, wife of Libadoth, was a prophetess. She led Israel at the time. One of the things that I find so fascinating about this verse, the Hebrew, Devorah Isha Nivi'ah in Hebrew says first, in Hebrew, it says Deborah was a prophetess. She was a female prophet. That is what is in the Hebrew job description before saying who she was the wife of. But no matter where I read it, the fact describing her as a wife comes first. Why is a whole other conversation we don't have time for. So we meet her and she is a prophet. And actually, I love Jill's background. I don't know if you can see it because this matches the next verse. She used to sit under the palm of Deborah, which Jill kind of looks like she's sitting under the palm of Jill. And here's the geographical location. And the Israelites would come for her for a decision. So we're not told what the decisions are. We can sort of guess. If we had more time, we could say maybe it was a fight between who owned what or who had what to say about this or that. It doesn't say. We don't know. She's not, Judge Judy. We have no decision. We have no description of what kind of things she talked about. But the very next verse, after we see that she has this sort of elevated position within the community, we now see that she is, her next advice is not about deciding between who owns what or who said what or things that we might think of as a judge would normally do. She now gives military advice. And so I'm not sure if we can see, if my screen sharing is, if it's not as what I thought it might be. I'm just going to read very quickly. She sent and summoned Barak, the son of Abinoam, from Kadesh Naphtali, and said to him, has not the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you, go and gather your men at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 from the people of Naphtali and the people of Zebulun, and I will draw out Sisera, the general we heard about before, and the general of Jabin's army to meet you, and I will go there. So essentially, we don't have that much time to say. She tells Barak how he should have this next battle, and he says something to her that is quite remarkable. He says, if you go with me, I will give him to your hand. If you go with me, I will go and I will have this battle. But if you don't go with me, I will not. Then she says something amazing. She says, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the road on which you are going will not lead you to glory. The Lord will sell Sisera into a hand of a woman. In other words, I'll go with you, but just so you know, everyone is going to know that a woman helped you ultimately win this battle. A difficult thing to unpack. What is more amazing is that we are told that Deborah is this fabulous prophet, and she can make all of these fabulous decisions. But in fact, even though she seems to be the main character in this story, we learn that not only was she helpful in guiding Barak in terms of the battle, but one of the main leaders, that General Sisera that we talked about earlier, he flees. He sees that his army is being defeated, or his battalion is being defeated. He runs away. He runs away on foot to the tent of Yael, who is the wife of Heber, someone who he is someone that he has good relationship with. And Yael, again, I could ask how many of you have somebody named Yael in your family. I would say probably not a lot.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Fabulous.
She's in
Okay.
Israel. Actually, she's in Israel. She's a lawyer in Israel. Yep. Go
Okay,
ahead.
guess what? I want to go to you. I couldn't see who you were. Is my screen share? Who said that? Who's
Lucy. Lucy did.
Lucy.
Hello.
Lucy. Hello, Lucy. Do you know what maybe you know. Lucy, do you know what Yael is famous for in this story?
Superman.
Say it again.
Somebody else answered. I don't know who. Somebody said
Superman, I think.
Superman, I think. She was.
Susan
Yeah,
Newmark says she's like Superman.
Yeah, she was a general. She was.
No, she 10 pegs. She 10 pegs the bad guy in the brain.
Yep.
She 10 pegged the bad guy. So Sisera runs away on foot, comes, and Yael says, "Oh, welcome. Wait for my husband here. No problem." He says, "Okay, just don't tell anyone I'm here. Come on in. You look thirsty. You look cold." She gives him a skin of milk. She puts a blanket over him. He falls asleep. And then, as Susan says, she tent pegs him. She jabs a tent peg into his skull, essentially.
Hey.
And is a real, bad, fill in the blank. Actually, I have a friend, one of my very close friends from college is a woman named Yael, and she actually, after college, taught soldiers how to shoot from their tanks. So she really became like the embodiment of her name. So back to what Deborah said, okay, a woman is going to make sure that you win the battle. Yes, Deborah helps Barak on the battlefield, but it is Yael who puts the nail in the, not coffin, but in the head of the escaped general. And then after all of this happens, again, blood, gore, all kinds of things, this story of Deborah ends with a shirah, a poem or a song of Deborah. And it follows similar a similar genre and mode of Shirat Hayam. We read in Parashat Balach, after we cross over Freedom's Sea, Moses sings a song to God, and in that we have one of the most famous quoted things in our liturgy. What kind of question is in Shirat Hayam? Anyone want to call it out? Anyone remember? It is a question about God that we witness this and we ask this rhetorical question: who is like you, oh God? The answer: nobody. And similar in the song of Deborah, we praise God. Similar in Shirat Hayam, there is description of God also kind of being, I'm going to say it, there are no kids here, God's a badass too, in terms of it's military. Just through the blowing of his nostrils, the Pharaoh's charioteers fall into the sea and every. So again, the song of Deborah is one of praise of God's might, but also of God's how God will take us in and protect us. But it is a very graphic military description of how God will share that we all will be protected. So the song of Deborah again is poetic, but tells this story of God's strength, and how it's not just bless you, oh God, because we are in this covenantal relationship. It's God, you have our back because we are able to rise up against our enemies and defend ourselves so that we can continue. It will take some time for us to establish ourselves as a nation in Israel, and it will take some time. This battle does not end the story of our rift with the Canaanites. I think we could say that we're still in a rift with different folks, but again, Deborah is again so much to unpack, and I've already gone over my 30 minutes. But Deborah is shown. There's no backstory. There's no, well, how did she become a judge? Under, who gave her the foresight to become? Who did her? How did her husband let her sit under the palm tree and make all these decisions? Questions that do not appear in the book of Judges about her. She is just given to us as a model of strength, of independence. She has foresight. She somehow, there's nothing that tells us how or why, but somehow Yael gets the memo that she too has the ability to write our people's story and do what she needs to do as an independent, strong, and courageous, albeit a bit gory, heroine of the story. So this a Bissel of Torah was our goal to introduce you a little bit to Deborah the prophet. Again, everyone who has aunts, cousins, daughters, nieces with this name, who means bee, which, by the way, like a bee with a stinger, a tiny little insect. But from this tiny little insect, we get dvash, we get honey and sweetness. So may the story and the wisdom of learning about Deborah and holding her up as a model of strength and inspiration, I hope all of you get a little bit more curious and take open your Tanakh, your Hebrew Bible, and read a little bit more, and maybe take a look at her story. Maybe listen to the Debbie Freeman song about Deborah the prophet, and the repetition of that song I'll end with. Uri Uri Shir Da Beri, arise, awake, Deborah, and sing us a song. So we hope that this whets your appetite to learn a little bit more. We will continue, same station, same time, same channel next week, and we invite you to join and learn. I don't know, maybe if Rabbi Rubenstein could put in the chat, or maybe Sharon, can you tell us who is our teacher next week?
Yes, I can. It is Rabbi Roger Lerner, and he'll be speaking on Rahav. And it's the same link for the rest of the series. You can always, if you lose it, you could always register again and you'll get it, or you can email me and I'd be happy to send it to you. So on behalf of the Federation and the Klai Kodesh, we thank you very much for coming, and we hope to see you again next week and the next week and the next week. So you can unmute and say goodbye if you want to each other.
Thank you. Thank Rabbi. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Rabbi. It was a pleasure today.
Thank you so much.
Yes, very nice.
Good morning.
Rabbi. We'll
On
check
our
our
way
roots.
to Shavuot. Bye, Pomerantz.
Alrighty then, I'm going to end it all.
Is it all? Oh God, no.
All right, see you next week.
Thank you so much. It's